name's Dr. Atwood Daly. I'm the school counseling supervisor here. And along with Ms. Gildersleeve, Ms. Hickey, Ms. Nascimento, and Ms. White, we're going to just be talking to you about post-secondary programming, what your junior child right now is thinking about and going to do after high school. I will say, obviously, we look at post-secondary as college is probably the main one that comes up, and there is a focus here on college because there's a lot involved with it, 2-year or 4-year schools. But of course, post-secondary also involves if your child's thinking about technical or trade school, entering the workforce, internships, and some people take a gap year or just go right to work, to employment as well too. But there is a focus on college here for this information, for planning for that should start now, thinking about certain things going forward into the beginning of the senior year for your child. So when we presented this to the juniors yesterday, we talked about just thinking about a self-assessment and some questions, your child, our student, should be thinking about when they want to pursue a post-secondary school program. Do they know what they want to study? Do they know what career they want to go into? And that's sort of our job, is to sort of help them, guide them as to what sort of degrees, what kind of programs, what kind of credentials do you need for that. We also asked them to think about the environment they learn best and their learning style. As we know, there's thousands and thousands of colleges, and some have a very small environment, a medium-sized environment, large environment, and that's important for your child to know as well what they're comfortable with, which is why we encourage campus tours as well, which we'll talk about. And also, how do they learn best? Schools have a variety of resources for students who may struggle a bit with learning, and colleges still provide those services, and there's colleges, again, that are better suited for different people's learning styles. And again, like I said, we asked them, if you don't want to go to college, are you thinking about other options, military, trade, employment, or structured gap or service year? And of course, we have students that have no idea, and that's perfectly fine. And we hope to sort of get them to that place by their senior year as well too, with what their plans are. What your student has been doing so far with us in the school counseling department. So every junior is enrolled into the junior workshop class. That class took place during quarter 2. And during this course, the following topics were covered. We went over capstone, which is a graduation requirement for us here at the high school. We had Ms. Nero and Ms. Mayette come in and talk to the students about that, and thinking about it and planning for it for next year. Some students have had the opportunity to complete that during their this summer as well too. We've talked about post-secondary career planning. We've talked about post-secondary searches, so looking at, what's out there and sort of comparing and contrasting, and we're going to go over each of these pieces. We're each going to talk about a part of them. Also, resume and brag sheet completions have gone over. Common App creation, and we'll talk about what the Common App is and how your students should be familiar with that from doing junior workshop with us. And scholarship and financial aid information. Currently right now, just so you know, like seniors, when your student's a senior, kind of applying to college kind of comes first, applying to programs, and then scholarships are sort of after that. We have our seniors right now applying to various scholarships as well too, just so you know, for a time frame. And then aside from the junior workshop, your student has also completed a personality interest profile through Naviance. That was during their sophomore year and their sophomore workshop. And we had the Connecticut Greater Hartford College Fair this past October. They've attended that because it's during the school day, and we will have another one in the fall of the upcoming year as well too. And what do post-secondary programs typically look for? These are the pieces, again, that we're going to talk about, that we, try to teach the juniors while they're here in junior workshop, and then just go over with them in those individualized meetings as well too. Each thing that's unique to each of them. The high school transcript, and again, we're going to get into that. That's all courses and grades they've earned from 9th through 12th grade. Also, the senior year courses and grades we go over with them as well. Standardized testing, SAT or ACT, we're going to talk about that. The essay for some college applications is, or programs, recommendation letters, extracurricular activities, and then sort of demonstrated interest. These all we're going to go into more detail on as well too. All right. We're also going to take questions at the end, so if you have a question, you know, just keep it in mind or write it down. We will ask if anybody has any questions at the end. We're going to have Ms. Hickey come up and talk about post-secondary school lists.
Hello, I hope you're all doing well. Okay, so what I'm going to just be focusing on is building a realistic list for your students to be applying for in the fall. So the number one thing that you want to think about is the academic profile. So that does not just necessarily mean like the students' SAT scores or their GPA or the classes that they took. It also means their resume, and we're going to get further into that later. But colleges and post-secondary programs are no longer just looking for the smartest student in the classroom, they're also looking for the most involved. So they're focused on, you know, you're making an investment into their institution, but they're also, you know, they want your student to make an impact on their campus. So how can we stand out and things like that. So with the GPA and the standardized test scores, that's kind of understanding what the acceptance rate means. So you might have a school with an acceptance rate of 1 to 5%. That's typically going to be, you know, the Harvard, the Yale, the Brown, the Ivy Leagues. Whereas a school might have an acceptance rate of 85%, we're looking more at like Central, Southern, Eastern, in that nature, okay? So when you're going and you're looking at these schools, it's very important that you pay attention to that acceptance rate, because that will kind of give you that, you know, realistic mindset of what you're going to be going up against. Another thing to consider when you're looking at these programs is the financial fit. So yes, you know, we would hope that your student would get some merit money that is outside of, you know, the funding and the FAFSA, but also, you know, what money you'll be getting off of the price tag of that school. Okay, so when you apply to a program, you want to make sure that financially it's going to be beneficial for you, and you're not going to, you know, put all of your money into this school where your student's not even 100% sure if they want to attend there. Okay. Number of applications, so we typically see the average Berlin High student apply to 7 to 10 schools. Those should all be schools that your student can see themselves attending. So we have a lot of students who will just apply to schools just for the ha's of it. Keep in mind that if you apply to a school and you get in, even if it's not a school that you can see yourself going to, you're now taking that spot away from someone else who actually wants to go to that school, okay? So even if the application is free, oh, I'm just applying just to see if I get in, to see what money I'll get, it's taking away a spot from someone who actually wants to go there. So this year was the first year that UConn actually implemented an ED application, which means early decision, and we're gonna go into that in a few minutes. But early decision is a binding contract, so you as the parent and guardian sign off on it, the student signs off on it, and then their school counselor signs off on it. So if a student applies to UConn as an early decision student and they get in, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. They are going to UConn, and they have to call all of the other schools they applied to and withdraw their application, okay? So with that being the first year, this year doing that, we are finding that a lot of the students who did ED in the fall got in, you know, if they match the criteria, and they got Storrs campus, where students who just did regular decision, they got branched out, you know, Hartford, Avery Point, Waterbury. And the reason behind that, doing the ED this year, was to really, you know, target those students who really want to go to UConn and they're not just applying to apply. So with that in mind, also, each application that you submit typically does cost money. So the UConn application's $85. The Central application is $55. So before you know it, these application fees are really, really adding up, and that can get really expensive. Something to keep in mind when you're going on, you know, these campus tours and you're meeting with these admission counselors is ask for a fee waiver. A lot of these colleges have no problem giving you like a little promo code. You know, when you go to check out your application, you type in the promo code coupon and you get a free application. So It's definitely worth advocating for. Some colleges and post-secondary programs are a little hesitant to give them, but it never hurts to ask because you can save some money here and there. Another thing to consider is, some programs are really challenging and difficult to get into. So if you're applying to a PT program, a pre-law program, a nursing program, you may be applying to more than the average 7 to 10 applications. You may be applying to 12 schools, just because they are all so competitive to get into, okay? A little reality check that we like to throw in is, so Brown University, it is an Ivy League, 81% of valedictorians in the nation don't get in, okay? So that's just something to think about. Another popular school that our students are, tending to apply to is UNC Chapel Hill. It's a great school, but it is out of state, and a lot of out of state schools love their people. So when you look at it, out of the 57,000 first-year applications that they got, 43% were NC residents, okay? 8.2% were out of state and international. So it's not just out of state applications in the US, you're also going up against international countries as well. So you definitely want to keep that in mind when you're looking at these schools. The acceptance rate might be high, but what is that for the in-state residents versus the out-state residents, okay? So when you're looking at programs, you're going to have reach schools, target schools, and safety schools. Reach schools is just what you think it would be. So it's a reach. So a lot of students who have the same, profile and background as yours, that's a long shot for them. And your application list, you should have 1 or 2. So we definitely encourage students, if you have that dream school, definitely apply. You never know what's going to happen, but you don't want to wrap your whole application list around, all these reach schools, because then you might be disappointed in the end. Your target schools are your realistic schools. So this is where majority of your schools should be built upon. So it's a 50-50 shot, but most likely you're going to get into these schools. Another thing to consider about your realistic schools is make sure every school on that list, you as a student can see yourself attending, okay? And that brings me to safety. So safety schools, students with your background and your profile, highly likely, good chance you're going to get in. A lot of students will just apply to a school, oh, it's my safety, it's my backup, and then I'll say, oh, so you can see yourself going there? Oh, well, God, no, I'm not going there. So yes, you want to make sure that your safety school is also a school that you can see yourself attending, because, life happens, and I've seen it more than once where, a situation occurs at home and now you have to stay local, or now, your plans have changed and you got to fall back onto your safety. Make sure you like it. There's a lot of schools out there, okay? Next is your transcript and your academics. So your student's transcript is going to have all of their classes that they took from freshman year to senior year on there. So it's going to just have their classes, it's going to have the final grade that they got, and then the credit that they got. So it does not have a breakdown of all the quarters and all the semesters. So for an example, this is what the student's transcript looks like. So it has their freshman year classes, final grades, credits, sophomore year classes, final grades, credits, junior year, and then senior year. So if you, got a 60 in English freshman year for quarter 2, they're not going to see that. They're not going to get the breakdown, but they will see all the credits that you earned, the credit that maybe you didn't earn, or if you withdrew from a class, they'll see the W. So they do see all that, but they don't get a whole breakdown. So this student, their transcript is quite impressive, but this is just one of many impressive transcripts that our students at Berlin High have. So if we go down here on the bottom, it's going to have their GPAs from over the last 4 years. It's going to have their overall GPA, and then the number of credits that they took. So credit hours is the credit of the class. Okay, so like American Lit is 1 credit, things like that. Okay, so at the end of their junior year, at the end of this June, that is going to be their final weighted GPA that they're going to use to submit all of their applications in the fall. So junior year is really your last shot at getting your GPA to be where you want it to be. That's why you always hear, junior year is the most important year. It is important, but so are all the other years because it's a building block, Okay, so then in the fall, we will send off the students' final junior year transcript. They will get their senior year schedule, and then we send quarter 1 grades and semester 1 grades. So they can't catch senioritis just yet because, a lot of colleges don't even give their decisions until March. So they got to keep doing what they're doing. With that said, you also want to maintain the same rigor across all the years. So if you've been in AP English since, sophomore year, you want to keep that, same rigor going. And we find that, a lot of students will drop an AP here or there. Oh, it's not the major I'm going into. I'm not studying that in college. It doesn't matter. Colleges like to see that you're still advancing and you're still trying, because your freshman year, regardless of where you're going, you're still taking those humanity credits. Okay, so we're not here to say you should take every AP. That's not what I'm preaching. I'm just preaching that, you don't want to make your senior schedule as simple as it can be if that's not how you've been the last 3 years, okay? Also, our GPA is on a 100 scale, so you'll see that a lot, like is your GPA a 4.0, a 3.0? We do ours on a 100 scale. There are calculations out there that you can then make your 100 GPA into a 4.0 scale, okay? So senior year courses, kind of going off what I just said earlier, we will be meeting with our rising juniors next week, actually, during their U.S. history class. We're going to be pulling them one by one to review the classes that they registered, make sure that they're scheduled for what they need in order to successfully graduate. And even if they only need, 2 classes, they still need to take the 6 to be a full-time student. So they'll be here. Next is the standardized testing. So next Wednesday, all of your students will be taking the in-school SAT, some for the first time. I'm sure, they're so excited to be doing that. So the SAT is out of 1,600 points, and the ACT is out of 36. We do have some links that we're going to be publishing this whole presentation, so you guys will be able to, go on and see them. The SAT is going to be offered here in school next Wednesday. Should your student want to take another SAT, they are more than welcome to do so. It is on the student, though, to register and pay for the standardized test to take it on a weekend at a later date. So we offer most SAT dates here at Berlin High School on a Saturday morning. The ACT, which is just like the SAT, it has reading, writing, and math, but a science component. Those we do not offer here, but I know surrounding districts do, so your student is more than welcome to sign up and take it at a different school. One thing to consider is a lot of schools are test optional nowadays since 2020, but some schools have, really different criteria. So if you don't have a certain GPA, then you have to send your SAT score. Or if it's a certain program, you have to send your SAT score. I know a lot of students are applying down south. For Florida, for an example, all 12 public schools in Florida are not test optional. So you do have to submit your SAT score to those schools. So something to just keep in mind and consider. We do sit in on a lot of conferences with college representation, and they all state that if you don't send your score to a test optional school, it's not a red flag. They're not going to, put a marker on your student's application. It really is like it just doesn't even count. It doesn't matter. They don't view it as a negative thing. They just look at it as if it's a good score and it's going to help you, send it. But if it's going to hurt you, please don't even show us, and we won't even consider it. Okay? So this is just going into some of the dates. And then another thing that we find, our students, they want to take the SAT and they want to get that 1,600. They really want to, ace the SAT. But then I say, well, have you been studying? And they say, no. So if you want to get a higher score on your SAT, it's just like any other test. You have to put in the time, you have to put in the practice. So these are some of the links that we find to be the most helpful. Khan Academy SAT Prep is something that our students are doing in their general classrooms every day for homework or classwork. But they have access to all these apps on their phones. So, they definitely can be doing, the SAT Daily Vocab app every morning before school. I'm sure they'll love that. Or doing the SAT Daily Math problem every night before bed. So little things like that, they can really improve their score. And now I'm going to move it on to Ms. Gildersleeve, who's going to talk about extracurricular activities.
Good evening. So I'm talking a little bit about extracurricular activities, and although I'm speaking about this a little bit more on the basis of the Common App, because that's kind of what this display is showing you, the extracurricular activities are really important, kind of no matter what your child decides to do. But specifically on the Common App, there's a section that's designed for students to list 10 of their most important activities that they have, whether it's inside Berlin High School or outside of Berlin High School. So jobs, hobbies, family responsibilities, working, volunteering, all of that should be counted, okay? So your student has already written a resume. So in their junior workshop, they wrote a resume basing on we gave them 4 templates and they were able to fill out one of them. So this is just an example of one of the templates that they might have used. So that they can use this information. They've sort of picked it apart already. They were given about an hour to do so. And now they can take that information and they can move it right onto the portion of the Common App that has the activities section. The activities section is very, very important. Schools are now looking at a student as a whole. And like Ms. Hickey was saying, you know, if you're not going to send your SAT scores, they are looking at what's the next step. So your GPA and what your transcript looks like, but then the next big thing is extracurricular activities. So it's really, really important that your student is getting involved. So then there is the Common App essay section. So lucky for your student, in their junior English class, no matter which one they have, Q4 will be the last assignment will be dedicated to writing this essay, so that they will have the opportunity to write it. Their teacher can go over it with them. There are helpful links to writing the essay. We will have, like we said, these links will be available to you to go over it. But they are able to write, get feedback from their peers. But if something happens over the summer that is even more important that the student wants to write about, they should just scrap their first one and write about that. They want to try to stand out, kind of tell a story. Maybe they didn't do so well like freshman year and they've been growing ever since. It's a personal story, and it's something that had impact on them throughout their time in high school. These are some essay prompts, and although choosing the prompt is not as important as the story that they're going to tell, I'm sure their story would fit into any one of these prompts. So there's 6 actual prompts, and then there's an essay topic of their choice. It could be something that they've already written, or it responds to a different prompt, but they will be able to build them out, whether it's by using a prompt or by designing their own essay. My last piece is to talk about letters of recommendation. Interestingly, before I came here, I watched a TikTok that said this is like one of the biggest things juniors should be doing before they leave school this year. So teacher letter of recommendation. Hopefully your student has 2 people, at least, in this school that they find that they like the teacher. It does not have to be their best class. It doesn't have to be the class they're getting an A+. Maybe it's the class where they have the most to offer. They're raising their hand, they're helping other people within the classroom. Maybe that's a good teacher. But they should start thinking about that right now, because by May, they should be asking that teacher for a letter of recommendation. Hopefully, or moving forward, once they sort of figure out their schools, they should then be communicating with that teacher, letting them know what their deadline is, so that the teacher can have it ready in time. The opportunity to be able to ask them now, and why that's so important, is the teacher will have much more time to write a more caring, creative letter for your student than if they're rushed and the student says 4 days before their deadline that they need a letter of recommendation. The letter is not going to look the same. Okay, so they should be asking them in person and following up with an email just saying, thank you for writing my letter. I will let you know when I have my first deadline, should the teacher need to know that. There is a teacher letter of recommendation form, so they'll have access to it on this PowerPoint, and also in their individual meeting, they will also have this link. The next one is a school counselor letter of recommendation. Not every school requires this, but this is where the students should be looking at what the requirements are for each school. So if they do need a letter of recommendation, it's actually great if they would ask their school counselor before we leave for the summer as well. Same principle kind of sits, is that, you know, if we have a little more time to write them, it's just a little more complete. So we want from them their resume, the school counselor letter of recommendation form. There is a student brag sheet, which they already filled out in junior workshop, and there is a parent brag sheet, so that you guys will have to fill that out. It's on your student's Naviance account. They can open it. It's under the to-do list. You go in there and you get to brag about your child. So we have a different role a little bit of, we're not talking about how a student is in a classroom. We're talking about more of their other stuff that happens in their life, the things they're involved in, you know, the rigor that they're trying to take in their classes perhaps, or maybe something happened outside of school that a teacher just is not going to be able to talk about. So they just want to make sure that they're keeping their resume up to date as things happen, so that we have the most up-to-date information when we go to write their letter. Next, Ms. White is up to talk about types of post-secondary programs.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm here to talk about types of post-secondary programs that your student may be interested in. So there's two types. There's your 4-year and your 2-year. So your 4-year undergraduate program at a college or university, typically the application process is through the Common App. We have two types. You have your public schools and your private schools. So public schools are usually funded by the state, federal government, lower tuition rates, but fewer scholarship aid. Private schools, on the other hand, rely on tuition fees and private funding, however, may give more substantial discounts. You have your 2-year programs, which is typically your community college, where the application process is on their individual website. Also true for trade programs as well. The trade programs are usually for-profit schools that focuses on career and certifications. Deadlines, 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 right? You know your student, right? I see some smiling parents in the audience, right? You know your students, and we know that deadlines are not really their thing, right? But when it comes to applying to your post-secondary options, it is very, very important that your student know the deadlines for their individual colleges or universities that they're applying to. All right, so these are some typical deadlines that you will see when applying to your post-secondary options. Early decision, right? This allows you to apply early, and you are committed to attending that school if you're offered an acceptance. You can only apply to one early decision school because it is a binding contract. You have early action. This allows you to apply early, however, you are not committed to that school if you're offered acceptance. You have regular decision. This typically begins in January and decisions are released in March. Roll-in admissions. Your application will be reviewed when it is received and completed. And you have your priority deadlines, which is, take note of this, especially if your child wants to apply to like a specialty program, like a PT program, an engineering program, nursing school, etc., honors program. These may have different deadlines than their regular admission deadline. So your student wants to make sure they're taking note if they're applying to a program with a priority deadline. So these deadlines are important, and parents, please take note of this as well when you're helping your student fill out the Common App. Make sure you're looking at the different deadlines that they have so you're aware of, you know, when applications are due. What are you looking for? What are you and your child looking for, right, when they're applying to their post-secondary programs? Location, location, location. Do you want your child to be a plane ride away? Do you want your child to be a 45-minute ride away by car, a train ride, a 15-minute drive up the street, right? So location is very important when you're choosing your post-secondary option. The size of the school. Berlin is a small school, right? So when you're thinking about the size of a college or university, UConn would be considered a large school. I went to UConn. It's taking me 20 minutes to walk to class from where I lived, right, on campus. Central would be considered a medium-sized school. The University of Hartford would be considered a small school. Where's your child going to thrive the best, right? Are they going to be sitting in a lecture hall as big as this, where the teacher doesn't know your name, right, and you're just a number? Major, right? We all know our kids. Oh, well, my friend is going there. I want to go there. But does that college or university have what you want to study, right? Campus life. We know if you've been to college that you meet your lifelong friends in college, right? Doing similar things. Do they have clubs and activities that you want to be involved in where you can meet people who are like-minded? Is it a good academic fit for you, right? You want something that's going to challenge you, but you also want to be successful as well. And parents, we know this, the cost, right? What is the cost of attending this specific school that your child wants to go to? So in junior workshop, I'm going to open this. Hopefully it doesn't mess up on me. But in junior workshop, students receive this college search sheet. It has their PSA, so it gives them a list of questions to go through when looking for what is the best fit for you. Right, so if they're PSAT or SAT scores, if they know it, they put the answer down, the name of the school that they want to go to, whether it's private or public. Okay, here we go. The size, academics, outcomes, and mission requirements. So this is a good sheet to use when looking for the best fit or even going on visits. And I have some helpful links here as well. I'm not going to open these links because you guys will be getting a copy of the PowerPoint where you can do some research with your students. But these are helpful hints to find the right fit for you, right? So you have niche.com, Big Future, which is a College Board website, ONET, Define Careers, which students have on their Chromebooks, and Naviance, where they use the Supermatch to help them find the best fit for them. So these are some helpful websites when you're sitting down with your student to really talk through what does the next steps look like for you? What are the things that are important to you? Is it location? Is it size? Is it campus life? Like right now, UConn is a big basketball school, right? The best school in the nation for basketball. Is that important to you? Is it going to a school that has a really good football team, right? Is that important to you? Is it going to a school where they share the same thoughts and views important to you? So this is a good place, or these websites are a good place to get started. Okay. Next up, we have Mrs. Nascimento.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm not Italian, but kind of close, so I need to move a little while I'm talking to you guys, okay? So at this point, your child has been thinking about what their preferences are. They've done some self-assessment. They are hopefully talking to you about their junior workshop experiences where they have listed out all of their activities and have created their resume. The second to last class that we have in junior workshop is the Common Application lesson. Honestly, we could probably have a whole entire night on the Common App. We could probably have a whole 2 sessions of junior workshop on the Common Application. This is where most of your students are going to submit their applications. There is a lot of information on the Common App that is valuable to the college process. Okay, about 95% of 4-year schools are partners with the Common App. Unfortunately, your trade schools and your Connecticut community colleges are not partnered with the Common Application, okay? I'm gonna take a minute to pause and just inform you that the Connecticut community colleges right now, if your student decides to go that route, it could be a very fiscally responsible thing for your child to do because students who have not gone to college before are eligible to take 2 years at our community colleges for free. So for those kiddos who are kind of on the fence, maybe need a couple more years to mature academically, or are just thinking, I know exactly what I want to do. I'm going to be fiscally responsible. I'm going to take my 2 years. I'm going to go for free, and then I'm going to go to my traditional 4-year school. Definitely an option. We'll talk to you guys more about that when we meet with you individually, okay? Back to the Common App. So the Common Application, all of the information regarding your students' deadlines, the application fees, all of that is on this website. Your student does have an account. We created it. They have filled out the preliminary information on the Common Application. I taught it, so if they tell you that they didn't do it, call me up and I will call your kid out, okay? So they do have the account, and they should have filled out the preliminary information. On August 1st, the application rolls over to your student's graduating class. That's when, if they have a solid schedule, they can start putting in that information as well. So if they tell you, no, I can't fill out my application over the summer, yes, they can, okay? And if you need any information to help with that, just give us a call and we'll help you out, okay? So it is definitely recommended that your students start completing the application during the summer before their senior year. If they've forgotten everything we've taught them about the Common Application, they have multiple sources where they can access some guides. So this PowerPoint will be offered to you and your student. There is the Common App tutorial video. It literally walks students and families through each section of the Common App. So if you have any questions, definitely reference that or give us a call, okay? In your student's senior year, we will be meeting with them individually. Parents do not have to come. You're welcome to, but you don't have to. This is where the school counselor sits with the student and just reviews the progress that they've made towards their chosen post-secondary goals, whether that be to pursue a 4-year degree and they need to fill out the Common Application, or they are pursuing that 2-year community college, or they're going to a trade. Whichever route they take, we will sit with them to review that they have completed all the steps necessary. Okay? Okay, post-secondary school interview. So this is another element of the Common Application, another element of the application that you can find information on in the Common App, okay? So schools will let you know in the Common App whether they require an interview. For those students who are perhaps trying to study music in the future, auditions will be required, and that will be listed in the Common App as well, okay? For those students who are pursuing fine arts or architecture, you will need to submit a portfolio. That information will be listed as well, okay? If your student is applying to a school that does not require an interview, it is still in their best interest to request one. My favorite thing to tell the kids is, whenever you see that word optional, exit out and say required, unless it's going to be detrimental to your application, okay? So if it says interview is optional, just get into the mindset, required, let's practice, let's get that done, let's get comfortable with that. It is the piece that can set your student apart from the competition, right? When we're applying to schools, we're competing for these spots. Unfortunately, that's how college is right now, college admissions. It's a very competitive process, or it can be. So anything to help set your student apart is going to help, aside from just their grades, right? Because it's not just about, it's important, but it's not just about the transcript, the rigor of the classes. Very important, but it's not just about that. Colleges are looking at the student holistically, and they want to know who they are as a person. Come the interview, come the essay, okay? We do have some resources for your students, for you and your students here as well. Again, like I said before, all these links are active and will be available to you in the PowerPoint. So some suggestions for that college interview process, possible questions to ask during the interview. So when your children were sitting here yesterday, I let them know. The schools are not just interviewing them, right? We're not just sitting down and hoping that they like us. We need to like them too, right? The student needs to like that institution as well, so they need to come prepared with a list of questions that are important to them, important to you as a family, that school needs to answer up to, right? Because it needs to be a good fit all around. All right, so we have those questions too. And then some questions that students are often asked during the interview so that they can be prepared. Again, these links will be available to you. Okay. So if your kids were sitting here, some of you are, this is where Ms. Nascimento does the thing. Visit schools. Visit, 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 visit. I did this yesterday, and the kids did not laugh like I was hoping they would. That's okay. But this is, again, another very important element of this process. I don't care if you are telling me that you're going to go to Chapel Hill. I don't care if you're telling me that you're going to go to UConn or to Central, or that you're going to go to Lincoln Tech, or that you're going to go to an apprenticeship. Whatever your goal is, make sure you are getting on that campus, that you're getting into that facility, that you are meeting with the individuals that are going to be responsible for the next couple of years of your experience, right? This is how you weed things out. Personal story. I thought that I was going to go to, well, I didn't think, I did, to go to UConn. I thought I was going to love it. I didn't visit. I didn't do anything. My parents were like, if you get in, that's where you're going. I was like, cool, that's fine. Didn't go visit at all. First week on campus, I felt like the tiniest little fish in the biggest giant bowl. Not comfortable at all. If I had gone to visit, if I had done that research, if I had spoken to the students, if I had visited the surroundings, I would have known that place was not for me. Fast forward, University of St. Joseph's, much smaller institution. That's where I got my master's. First day on campus, I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I just come here to begin with? Okay? So very, very, very important to do the legwork, go and visit the campuses, okay? You can make a request to visit the school by going online. Usually there's a button that says, schedule a visit, or sometimes it's hidden under the admissions button. When you do get yourself onto that campus with your student, make sure that you guys are talking to the students on campus, not just the people in the tour with you, but students that are walking around. Your kids aren't going to talk to strangers. So you guys might want to just, say, hey, what's going on? How do you guys feel on this campus? Okay. And then after you've done the things, you've asked the questions, you've gotten all the information from the tour guide, you've asked for that application fee waiver, as Ms. Hickey suggested you do, because that is okay to do when you go on these tours. Go out to lunch. Go pick a restaurant nearby. Visit the surrounding areas. Again, just to get a feel for what that community is like, okay? Your kids did not laugh at this yesterday either. I said, take pictures, take copious notes when you're on these tours. Make sure you're getting all the info. So I said I'd tell you guys, so I'm telling you guys. When you're there, take notes, okay? Take some pictures. It's nice to then go back home and just reflect what was great, what you didn't like, etc. And then, again, our students, and I have a freshman in high school too, so I'm included in this. Our students do not think that, politeness is cool anymore, but send the thank you notes, okay? What I told your students yesterday, what we tell them often is, when you make contact with a school, whether it be at a college tour, whether it be at a college fair, or it's the small group college visits that we often have college representatives visit with students in small group here. Any contact you make and they're getting your child's name, they count that, right? So that's called demonstrated interest. The more demonstrated interest your student demonstrates, okay, the better. Is it going to get them into a school that, they have no chance of getting into? No, it's not. But if you're competing for a seat with another student that's exactly the same as your kiddo's going to have a leg up because they've demonstrated that interest, right? So send that thank you note. Thank you so much for the tour. It was wonderful. I appreciate it, etc. Okay? Again, we have additional resources here for you. A college fair guide, and what do I do on a college visit? Very important, so I do encourage you to access that information when you can. Okay? Some miscellaneous items for the application process. How many of you here have student athletes that are interested in pursuing athletics in college? Okay, so number one person I think to go to is going to be obviously your coaches. They're going to guide you through this process, at least I hope so, okay? Hopefully they will tell you that you need to get your student registered with NCAA and on the clearinghouse if they want to do that athletic signing day, all right? If you have any questions about the athletic process, the post-secondary athletic process, please do not hesitate to reach out to your child's school counselor. We will help you navigate that as best as we can, or at least send you in the right direction, okay? Something that's been coming up the last couple of years is the SRAR, so it's the self-reported academic record, okay? This is kind of a pain for your kiddos, and a lot of seniors are like, really, do I really have to do this? And unfortunately, yes. It's not obvious in the Common App, but if you read through, often schools will say, okay, now you also have to complete the SRAR. This is where your student is going to take that transcript, okay, and they're going to list out every class that they've taken. They're going to list out all the grades that they've gotten into this portal. And then the colleges are going to use that information for whatever purpose that they're using it for. It's important to do, important to ensure that your student knows that they have to do it. Again, as with anything, if it comes up and you have questions, just reach out to us and we will help you the best way we can. Okay. Super important here, and what tends to be everyone's ultimate question, what does my kid have to do? Okay? So your students are responsible for sending their applications and paying the application fees, all right? Your students are responsible for requesting their official SAT or ACT scores. SAT scores will be available for sending to colleges on College Board, and the ACT on act.org, okay? Usually we say that students should send that about 2 to 3 weeks prior to their earliest deadlines. Your student is ultimately responsible for completing their essay and ensuring it's submitted through the Common App. They need to schedule their interviews, okay? They need to do the request for letters of recommendation. They need to complete their application. And they're going to work with you on completing the FAFSA, which is the Federal Application for Free Student Aid. For those of you who have kids who are in college already, and maybe you went through that during that crazy year where it was just nuts, I'm seeing some head shaking. The process this year has been a bit less bumpy, and I'm hoping for that to be the same going forward. Again, I'll say it 100 times. If you have any questions about it, let us know. We'll help you, okay? I saved the transcript request form responsibility for last because I didn't want to show you this, okay? So this is a form that we have students complete. It's on white paper right now, but it is a green form that we have your kiddos fill out. It is like the literal green light that students share with their school counselors that tell us, the school counselor, okay, I've done all the things, and now I am giving it to you for you to complete your end of the application, because we as your child's school counselor have some responsibilities as well. Okay, and what are those responsibilities? So once your students have made all the requests for their letters and have done all the responsibilities on this side of the list, we then, once we get that green form, we then send off the official transcripts. Kids are a little dismayed when they find out that their senior year, it's not just the end of the year or the end of the semester grades that get sent out. It is quarter 1 grades, it is semester 1 grades, and then we do send grades out again at quarter 3. So this whole thing about senioritis being fine, yeah, no, okay. Still gotta put on your A game, still gotta work hard, because your colleges are going to see this happen, all right? They're gonna see the grades that you get. But we do send that information out. We send the letters of recommendation out on their behalf, and then we schedule their senior planning meeting that I referred to earlier in the conversation. And of course, we sit down with your child to review that their application is fully complete as well, okay? And one item that's not listed there, but again, I've said it 100 times, and we are here for you and your child at any point throughout this process. It's just a matter of a phone call. So we're responsible for ensuring that you guys understand that as well. Okay? All right. Next, I'm going to give it back to Dr. Atwood.
Okay, just a few more slides. We just wanted to mention Career Pathways. It's a new program at the high school. How many have heard about this? Have received notice of it? Okay, a few. Same thing with our students when we talk to them. They've had presentations on it, and they're getting more information as we've been developing, the pilot for it for this upcoming year. So what it is, it's a program that's going to allow students to sort of dive into looking at a career they might be interested in. Again, sort of with the thought of if you know kind of what you want to do going into college or whatever training program you might need for a career, and you learn about it in high school. Maybe you sort of do these career pathway, I'll explain a little bit, and you realize oh yeah, this is what I'm interested in, or no, this isn't for me, and you have time before you invest 4 years or however long and money into a program. So it involves coursework, and it involves your students taking part in a learning opportunity or experience outside of the high school. In these areas that we have, there's I think 10 of them or so. We kind of went off, where our coursework is and opportunities for students. And then we also have a make your own pathway that if students, there isn't a pathway there. An example, I have a student interested in marine biology. She kind of looked at what courses apply here at Berlin High School. She has an experience she's doing for the summer at UConn with marine biology. It kind of lends itself to a pathway that way. The students are going to get more information. You will get more information as well too. And we talk with the students during that individual counseling session with them, the juniors, just about if they're interested in following a pathway. They do not have to. It's their choice. If they complete it successfully at the end of their senior year, they get a recognition on their transcript that they completed a career pathway, and also, I believe, a cord at graduation. So, as I said, you will get more information on that. Our work-based learning coordinator, Ms. Hemming, is also working with us on that and helping students with just career development and career searches and those pieces as well, too. She's a valuable resource to our students as well. And she will be available this week for evening conferences, 5 to 5:30. The conferences start at 5:30, but at 5, she's giving a presentation, a more thorough one on career pathways, if you're interested in learning about that. And on the website, there's a lot of information there as well. Just some final thoughts. You know, what we had talked about here, we really want the process for students looking into post-secondary options to be student-driven. They are the applicants. It should focus on their needs, their wants, not your peers, like one of the counselors had mentioned. Communication is key, just making sure, you know, we're all working together as a team to help the student with parents and counselors, and like I said, Mrs. Hemming as well, too, if they're looking into career options. This PowerPoint presentation, because we have a lot of links on it too, like we talked about, that you could go on and go to actual websites and various things, will be, we're recording it, and it's gonna be linked on the Berlin High School webpage under the school counseling section, and we'll post that tomorrow on Wednesday. We're also going to email it to all parents as well too, to the email that we have on PowerSchool. And then this is for the students, we had it, just to check, when they start this process, they should be doing this anyway with just school information. We send them on their email, but they don't always check it. But we just made a note for them to, you know, take the practice to keep checking your Berlin High School email for information and your personal. When they're going through this process of post-secondary, you know, applying to colleges and programs and scholarships or financial aid with FAFSA, they get a lot of information through email. So we just try to remind them, you know, if they haven't already, just to make it a practice to start checking those emails regularly. These are some important links we talked about too, just throughout the presentation, various sites that we use in this process. And we just have a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt: "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." You know, we want all of our students to reach their dreams that they have. Lastly, we have this QR code up here. It's also in your folders as well too, or should be. If, like we said, we are planning individual 30-minute meetings with your student, each individual counselor with their caseload. If you would like to join them in that 30-minute meeting, this is a Google form that you fill out, just indicating you would like to attend the meeting. And I think there's a question about days and times that work best for you, and we will schedule you in that meeting as well too. You'd receive a Google invite through email for that meeting. We are starting planning with them this month, March through May. And then if we have any questions, we'll do a little question and answer if you have any. Yep. Oh, thank you.
I did want to say one more thing about email. So it's important that your student has a personal email aside from the Berlin High School one, because they can't get outside emails sent in. So if a school or an admissions counselor from Central, let's say, is emailing them, they can't do it to their Berlin High School email. They won't get it. So we also want to make sure it's appropriate, you know, maybe first dot last name. Something simple.
Good thought. The other thing too is they don't have access to their email after they graduate too. So if they have information coming from colleges after they graduate, they won't be able to get it. So we try to tell them all the time, personal email.
Any questions?
Any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Don't be shy.
For the thank you notes, can they just be, emails?
You could, yep, absolutely, you can email, yeah. I mean, especially like admissions people, they're, right there on their emails all the time. But yeah, either card or email. I don't think they see it differently anyway. It's still a thank you.
Oh, we have another one.
Have you heard any issues with the SAT, the online SAT?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Have you seen or heard any issues with the online SAT?
The online SAT, with the students taking it, you mean? On the computer? Is that what you mean? No, I think the students actually prefer it. Is that what you're asking? Like, any problems with it?
I've heard that the system, that there's been some issues with some of the questions and stuff inside the SAT.
Not that I heard of. Have any of you? No. Yeah. The students actually have told us they prefer it, and it's less pencil and paper, I guess, like it used to be bubbling in the little bubbles. All right. Any other questions? No? All right. If you have any questions, we'll be around to talk with after, or you can email us as well, too. Thank you very much. Thanks for taking your time out of your night to come here. We appreciate it.